Hello everyone and welcome to the Anime Zillia, and thank you for joining me as we talk about the ending of the Crowned Game arc from the Tower of God. And it was a really good ending, if I'm perfectly honest with you. This arc all round was fantastic, but the ending to this arc kind of showed off a lot of different characters in a very positive light, while also leaving us with a few questions that we of course want answered as we move forward and progress through the story, which is something that I thought was a super smart thing to do. One thing I really did like about this webtoon version, when comparing it to its anime counterpart, was the detail that the story went into in terms of their side characters. We know that most of the characters that appear in this arc aren't going to be super important, but they still give the time on the side characters, and they give them a good showcasing overall. For example, early on in the story, they mention that there's a character that is ruthless and aggressive, that he can take down big groups on his own. And then in this arc, we see that there's one lady who can use a Shinsu wand. And that seems pretty powerful if used in the right sort of hands. So the fact that they're kind of going with these side characters and making them relevant for this specific arc, but also giving them a good showcasing, not showing they're just fodder, even though they practically are, I still think is a super good thing to do. And it's not a bad thing having too many characters that are somewhat fleshed out and that people can sort of get behind and kind of call a favourite. Because it's that way that they can then use that and use the comments and use the feedback from these chapters and decide which characters to implement moving forward for your final story. I thought this was super smart writing, and it got me more and more hooked. Ultimately though, these side characters just can't match up to the main cast in terms of their strength and smarts. But to their credit, even Shibisu is more threatening than some of these side characters, and I like the fact that we get a bit of Shibisu sort of content in this towards the end of the arc, because we see him sitting there in his cell just commentating on the events that's happening, and he's actually able to follow along and kind of almost guess how Kun is actually going to proceed with his plan, and that just kind of builds up Shibisu's character all that more, which I always can appreciate. However, once Bam's team entered the Crown Game, this kind of whole ordeal, the event, the task, whatever you want to call it, it took an exciting turn. I really did enjoy reading through this segment of the arc. The final stages of the arc is a good highlight, because it highlighted some different personality traits and sides to Kun's character. He became a lot more cocky / arrogant. He was just toying with his opponents, and even tried to get them to fight each other by chucking in one of the fake crowns. Which, basically, his plan almost did work in the end. He intended the other teams to try and fight each other and to gang up on each other so that they would weaken themselves to the point where Kun and Rax, maybe even Bam at this point, could be capable of kind of just taking them down once the final team thinks they've got the proper crown. All they have to do is try and steal the throne. And of course, it's a fake crown, so we don't need to worry too much about that. But even though the plan doesn't go 100% to plan, it's still nice to see that Kun and Rax, they led the kind of assault and the attack, and they were both capable of putting up a decent fight against a larger number of opponents, which I wouldn't expect anything less from Rax, because he's always been hyping himself up to be this strong warrior type character. So we know that in the strength department, he can be pretty effective. Kun, obviously, on the other hand, is more of a smarts and strategic type of character, but he can certainly fight and pull his weight in a fight, which is pretty good. So props to him on that. But the twist with obviously the bag being able to copy items, thus leading us to the crown being copied and being fake, and all of Kun's weapons being a copy / replica, was actually a really good twist, and it played to Kun's sort of strategy and skills, as he's able to plan out the events that unfold to basically get the best possible situation or solution to victory. And I like that. This bag's always had that air of mystery. In the anime, I remember watching it and kind of going, I want to know what's up with that bag. What's up with it? There's something with it. Hong Sung Yu even said something Leiro kind of mentioned it, the Shinzu wall veil thing that he went through. He struggled to get through it with the bag. What is up with it? And we finally learned that yes, it can copy items. And in addition to copying items, the bag seems to be able to store people within itself. And this also plays to Kun's strategies and his sort of forward thinking, in allowing him to basically place allies into the bag to call upon at a certain time of need. Much like in the second round of his team defending the crown / throne. Having this secret team be on his side to help kind of reinforce his kind of strength and numbers, as well as the fact is it also helps to reinforce Kun as a capable planner in obviously his forward thinking, which is a good asset to have whenever you're, trying to portray yourself as the smartest guy in the room. However, the team how that helps him in these chapters was just a one-time thing. And it was always going to be. However, Kun basically didn't want to use these characters this early on, which kind of caused him to be a little bit aggravated, a little bit annoyed / upset. But with that being said, people like Hung Sung Yu was noticing the bag, as we saw a few chapters ago, and it kind of forced his hand so that he had to release them early on, which is what he's more kind of annoyed at, but at the same time, it's super useful, and we know that he called upon those teams by basically putting up his hair in that little bandana type of thing. The other thing I want to know though is, in this chapter, we see this ghost type of character getting absorbed into the bag. What's going to happen to him? Is Kun just going to release him off screen or something? Or is he going to be used someone in the future and just be kept inside that bag? I mean, it would be a bit cruel if they went that route, but yeah. And another question I have, if I may portray a question to you as the audience, maybe you can help me out with this. Is the Black March protecting Bam from that bullet and blast from the Shinzu wand in this panel right here? Because from the way that I interpreted it, we see the bullet flying towards him and it gets stopped by this invisible wall. And then once we kind of see that stoppage, it goes to the wand, it goes to the gun, and then it kind of focuses in on the Black March in Bam's hand. Now to me, that would kind of go, the Black March protected Bam so Bam wouldn't die. Because we know the Black March did use her power for Bam once. And it wouldn't be a big stretch of the imagination to say that the Black March can see / hear what's going on outside of his own sort of sword thing. So maybe it doesn't want to kind of lose. Maybe it doesn't want to go to a knack, or he just doesn't want Bam to die in general. Because maybe she has taken a general liking to him. So if you could clear that up, that would be brilliant. Now enter the new team, and this team looks pretty tough. But there also seems to be a bit of kind of similarities when looking at this new team and Bam's team. They both kind of reflect each other in a sense. Both teams have two super strong members from what we know of. That of course being, on Bam's team is Rax and Kun, and on this new team it looks to be this lady that's fighting in heels, who we don't know the name of yet, although if you watch the anime you know her name, and obviously that big strong brute guy that stands in front of Bam when he tries to get to Rachel. So those kind of parallels, those similarities, I thought was pretty good. It goes a little bit further by both teams having a slightly weaker member. That of course being Bam and Rachel. Both teams also have irregulars, which leads me to the question of, if these two characters, Bam and Rachel, are the weakest members on their team, and they're both irregulars, aren't irregulars supposed to be super crazy strong and feared throughout the tower? So how is that the case? I guess it's just plot development and character progression. Oh well, we don't need to dwell on that too much. But this Gimp lady flies out of her gate the instant that she's able to, and shows off just how much of a threat she actually is. And she's actually the main cause of this game ending, which the new girl that we see from the new team is able to go toe to toe with this gimped masked character. And this, not gonna lie, I'm just gonna call her by a normal name. Alright, bit of a spoiler, I'm just gonna call her by a normal name. Endorsi her personality is really playful, and I just love that type of personality from a character. And it shows off a lot of kind of confidence in her own ability, and it's just basically the style of fighting that she uses. I just thought was unique, cool, and I want to see a lot more from this character, so hopefully we do moving forward. But it looks like she has a slight change from her anime counterpart, because it looks like in this fight she's using some sort of shield type attack, or defense I should say. And this wasn't included in the anime from what I can remember, but these rings kind of remind me of like the Sonic rings that like she just chucks up and it kind of like deflects the attack. That's what it kind of reminds me of, but at the same time, hopefully that can get expanded on a little bit. And I just moved my foot to my green screen, which is what made that noise if you heard it. Apologies. But the real visual change in this webtoon that differs from the anime counterpart, and I get that it's obviously something to do with the fact that animation is a lot more fluent and can run a lot cleaner than say like a comic can, but I've seen a lot of mangas where like big blasts are shown off to be very effective. But in this webtoon version, this blast, the part where Bam gets hit trying to save Rachel, in the anime makes it seem super dramatic as this massive explosive beam of Shinzu explodes out of Bam. Pause. And in the webtoon series here, we get like a small glimpse of something kind of covering the mask that the Gimp Lady was wearing after it gets shattered. But that's kind of it. So hopefully they expand on that a little bit later on in a few chapters later. Maybe Leira wrote is kind of like thinking back on what happened, and it shows like the whole beam and it like encasing everything around him. And there's also another visual change that I noticed from this webtoon series at this part. Maybe you caught it. Another thing would be Rachel is looking like she's being attacked or pulled by the hair. She looks like she's being dangled by a hair. And it looks like to be in a setting that's before they entered the tower. So I'm curious as to what this is all about. After all, we know next to nothing about the environment that Bam and Rachel were living in before entering this tower. So were there other people around? Was there like a bully around that would bully Rachel and Bam would kind of have to like learn to not attack him or just be nice to him? Who knows? But this is super intriguing and it really makes me ask a lot of questions, which makes me want to read on and carry on, hopefully to find the answer. The Yuri content was very interesting, as it seems that we have a lot more characters surrounding Yuri. She's kind of built her own team, which I don't know if this team is always following her, or if she had to specifically have this team for her excursion into finding the Black March. And it just confirms that she is also searching for Bam, which of course is the Black March holder at this point. But there is something called the Silver Wings, which is mentioned in this part, which is not elaborated on, so we do need more information later on. But what we do get from this segment is more information about Yuri's character herself. They're talking about going like these separate routes. Like as they go up the tower, there's more routes they gotta go through. And one route where Yuri's like, we should take that because it's the fastest. But it's got a lot of concentrated Shinzu in it because of, I think there's like these bunnies that are like laying eggs, and they do that in concentrated Shinzu so that it avoids like animals or prey coming close to it. I think that was the reason. But at the same time, Yuri isn't fazed by it. She knows she can get through, but her other teammates would struggle. So she's got a lot of resistance. But what caught my eye when reading was that they mentioned that Shinzu has never really affected Yuri, even when she was a young child. Shinzu was never really a burden or a hassle, it was just something that kind of came with the territory. And she just wasn't affected by it. So that way she doesn't really relate to normal people in the sense that when they say Shinzu is too dense or too thick for me to go through, I can't handle it. She's like, what do you mean? I'm fine. She's a bit ignorant in that regard. But they do also hint at the fact that she does have some kind of feeling or, desire to see Bam again. Not just because of the Black March, but just because she's interested to see how far he's managed to come. I think that's super cool. I can't wait for Yuri to actually come back into the story properly. I like Yuri's character, and hopefully it's soon. Okay, so real quick, while I was editing, I actually noticed something from the final chapter in the Yuri type of content section. At the end of it, we see Evan, or Ivor, I can't remember his name, I think it's Evan, basically Yuri's navigator. He's sat there looking very menacing, and he's looking very serious at the same time. But if you pay attention to what he's saying, why are you so excited, Lady Yuri? That guy is dangerous. Now, there's three possibilities as to who he's talking about. Number one, the obvious possibility is Bam. Obviously, they know he's in a regular, and they know that regulars are strong, they're dangerous because of what they've been told, and they can cause disruption. They also know that he's able to somehow draw out the power of the Black March. He was able to use it back in that kind of test. So, in the Navigator's eyes, it's not too hard to believe that he would think that he's a threat, and that maybe he might rival Yuri's own power. Which we don't know the extent of Yuri's power yet, so we can't really say for definite if that's his concern. Although, that being said, if he can't rival Yuri, he might even rival some of the characters that are in her party at the moment. The other character they could be talking about could be Hong Sung-yu, because they know that he is like the overseer of like the tests and everything, so if they go and crash the tests, then they know that Hong Sung-yu is a very dangerous man, and if they had to cross paths with him, then it could be a very difficult situation. And the third and final person that it could be is, I think, is it Von Conhel? Is it Von Conhel, the guy who owns the floor? Because currently that's the floor they're scaling in this part of the tower. So if they run into him, or they cause any disturbance and have to deal with him, then that could obviously lead to a dangerous and tricky situation that would put the rest of the group in a predicament. Honestly though, if I'm saying like my personal thoughts and opinions on that, I think he's talking about Bam, and I think that pairs nicely with the kind of ending of this crown game, in where we see that Bam has done something supposedly that is very kind of shocking and explosive, to say the least. That's just something I caught on while I was editing and looking back through and getting some images. I thought I'd add it in, and so I'm wearing a different t-shirt, but back to the normal video. Hopefully it's soon. Overall though, I really liked the way that they handled the crown game. I really thought it was an enjoyable arc, and yes, I've broken it up into 3 pieces, but it's super long. And all in all though, I think the way that the story is structured and written out and is presented has improved drastically from this arc upwards. So basically, we get a great showcasing of some side characters as well as the main cast, especially characters like Kun and Anak and Leor. Is it Leor? The I can't remember his name now. The sleeping bag guy. Basically, we get more information on those 3 characters that makes you kind of like the characters more and invest in those characters more. Introducing us to some new characters is always a fresh thing for a series, and they do that perfectly here. And it's nice to be getting a glimpse of the personalities of these new characters and the recurring characters that we currently have, which, you know, is a smart way of writing. It leaves us wanting to learn more about each character as we learn a little tiny bit. The art style is really good, and it's been improving throughout this entire arc, so hopefully it continues to do that. The dialogue and the twists were really smartly planned out, and they work so well in creating excitement and enjoyment. After reading this arc, I am fully excited to kind of delve into what's going to happen next. And there's also that added excitement of me knowing that I'm moving ever so closer to new content as an anime watcher. A part of me was thinking I'll just skip straight to the part where the anime ends. But you know what? I'm glad I haven't, because I've learned a lot about different characters, and I've seen a lot more of the events that occur in the anime in the Webtoon series. So I think it's been an exciting journey so far, and I can't wait to continue onwards. But with all that being said, you know, we'll have to see what happens moving forwards. And obviously, I would like you to join me as we do that, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. But another thing, that competition between Bam and Anak looks to be in Anak's favour. After all, Bam left the throne when trying to help the girl he believed was Rachel. And seeing this resolution should be something interesting. Because obviously, Bam's going to wake up without the Black March, knowing that he failed to keep his promise to Yuri. And that's something they've wanted to focus on in the last few, in this arc, so to speak. And, as always, I want to know your thoughts on this arc down in the comment section. Do you think this arc was one of the better arcs that we've had so far? Or do you think there's something that I've missed? If there's anything you feel like I've missed and I haven't spoken about, let me know. Feel free to say, hey, you missed this bit out. What do you think about it? And I'll be like, sure, I'll reply and I'll discuss things together with you and we'll have a good chat about it. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I don't really know how to end it, but as you can tell, like the video if you did, subscribe if you're new so you never miss a video from me. Like I said, join me on the journey as we continue going up the tower. Other than that though, have a great day. Alligator, matane. Goodbye.